For your ears only for the week of October 30th, I'm David Alpern.
And I'm Catherine Herzog with cheers to World Series champion St. Louis, where we are pleased to join you now on historic WEW. Now this.
What happened?
You got hit. You got shot.
What's your name?
Wake up.
What's your name?
What's your name?
New York, it's Oakland. Oakland is New York. New York, it's Oakland. Oakland is New York.
Get off the street, Chris. Get off the street.
The Occupy Wall Street phenomenon took a dramatic turn last week when police used tear gas and concussion grenades against the protest in Oakland, California, critically injured Marine Iraq War vet Scott Olson, and triggered a sympathetic demonstration escalation in New York, around the country and the world. Oakland resident Shanelle Matthews gathered more than 13,000 signatures on a Change.org petition demanding an end to the police crackdown, and local Occupy leaders called for shutting the whole city down for a day.
Overall, however, many see Occupy as still too determinedly unfocused and unorganized to make much change in the increasingly disproportionate distribution of American wealth and power. To consider the protest prospects for your ears only, we have Shanelle Matthews of Oakland on the line now, along with veteran journalist and social critic Ellis Cose. He's the author most recently of The End of Anger from Ecco Books and senior advisor to the Center for Work-Life Policy. First to Miss Matthews, welcome to our program.
Hi, thank you so much for having me this morning.
You do social policy work across the street from the Oakland Occupy site, and you join it most every day. Were you there when Scott Olson was injured, and were some protesters throwing things at police as they claim?
I was there that evening. It was a high-powered, very energized evening, and I think that the multi-layered way with which the police and the city of Oakland approached the protesters needs to be addressed. There definitely were some people who were antagonizing the police, but the capriciousness with which the city of Oakland approached the protesters without taking into context the historical trauma that Oaklanders have had with police brutality was really very irresponsible. And so there were a lot of layers and dimensions to the way that it unpacked itself that evening. I
know your petition asks for the police crackdown to end and for the site to be reopened to the protest. Do you plan to support the Oakland boycott of jobs, stores, schools, transportation?
I think that's very difficult to answer in that quite a few of those stores that we're going to be boycotting, the owners are part of the 99%. And so I will do my best to stand in solidarity with my comrades who are going to be boycotting Oakland with as much respect and dignity as I can, given to the storefront owners and to the people who are working in the transportation department in Oakland who, again, also belong to the 99%. So it's a very complicated process. We don't want to single out or exclude those people from this movement.
Oakland petition organizer Shanelle Matthews, next to author and commentator Ellis Cose in New York. Welcome back to For Your Ears Only.
My pleasure.
Do you think an effort to shut down Oakland will move the Occupy movement towards more effective action or diminish its support as a mainly peaceful expression of widespread frustration?
I mean, it may diminish its support somewhat in Oakland, but I think what we have to recognize are a couple of things. I mean, one is this movement is not centered in Oakland. It's become a national and even an international movement. There have been it's had offspring all over the place. And the other thing is that I'm not sure to call this a movement in the conventional sense is the right way to look at it. I look at it more as a group that's trying very hard to raise consciousness about trends that have been in existence for quite some time, but that many Americans have not been aware of. I mean, we're seeing over the last 5 decades, this huge increase in CEO income as opposed to ordinary income, going from 42 times what ordinary workers make in 1960 to 530-something times what they make in 2000. We've seen this huge accumulation of wealth. So I see the Occupy Wall Street movement as really more of a consciousness-raising movement. I think they are making the point to many of Americans that something fairly dramatic has been happening over the last few decades in terms of income and wealth distribution. And I think as a result of that, they're getting people to become increasingly concerned about it.
So if Occupy demonstrators continue to disdain conventional political channels, Can the sympathy they've generated, which has been demonstrated in recent polls, still be exploited by specific candidates and policy advocates, or do they continue to exist in different worlds?
Well, I think they are, and to some extent, different worlds, but it's synergistic in another sense. I mean, even the mayor of Oakland found herself apologizing for the treatment of the demonstrators and Occupy and issuing a statement in solidarity with them. The trends that they are focusing on are long-term trends that have been in existence for some time and are not going to disappear soon.
What's your sense of the racial factor in the Occupy phenomenon, given that minorities are among the most disadvantaged of the 99%?
I mean, I was actually at Zuccotti Park yesterday. It was certainly largely white, but there were people, there were Asians, there were African Americans, there were Latinos. And the fact of the matter is that the people who are most vulnerable are not necessarily the people who are the first to join a movement. And we know just from statistics that black unemployment is twice that of white unemployment, that Latino unemployment is 50% higher than Anglo-white unemployment. I think that's going to, I think that's going to change to some extent. But I think we also know that social movements are very often led by those who are in a position to lead them.
Well, here in New York, as the first snow is now coming down, city officials have removed electric generators and fuel supplies from the Occupy Wall Street site for safety reasons, they said. Do you see less hospitable weather or less tolerant officials as maybe the bigger problem for the protesters?
They now have plans to bring in bicycle-generated generators, where people basically pedal bikes to generate electricity. Sure, I mean, it's snowing now as we speak, and I'm sure that's going to decrease to some extent people who are inclined to hang out there all night, but I don't think it's going to go away.
By contrast to the Occupy phenomenon, what do you make of the retreat by big banks from new charges for using debit cards because of consumer pressure and market competition? Does that suggest an alternative free market approach to changing at least some aspects of our economic system, like boycotts of some TV show advertisers in the past?
Oh, I think what it suggests is that we are an economy in crisis, that people are hurting, and that even large banks respond when their consumers get outraged in the same way that Netflix most recently responded when they made a change which their customers just didn't like. Bank of America's $5 fee per month has drawn the ire of lots of people, including stand-up comedians and others, and other banks who have looked at this have said, well, maybe we shouldn't do this. I think all of these phenomena are tapping into some real concerns. They're tapping into a society that's in economic crises and income and wealth disparities that increase by the decade. And these are not vanishing concerns. They're going to continue to exist.
Veteran journalist and social critic Ellis Cose. He's the author most recently of The End of Anger from Ecco Books and senior advisor to the Center for Work-Life Policy. We also heard from social policy researcher Shanelle Matthews, who launched a Change.org petition against the police crackdown in Oakland.
Quote from the news, "To function correctly, the economy needs ethics, and not just any kind, but one that is people-centered." That was a report by the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace, in which the Vatican argued for more fairness in the world's economies and proposed a supranational authority to oversee them.
Next, Wall Street loved the Eurozone deal, but will it last? For your ears only.